We have some pretty great speakers today and a really awesome presentation. So I'm really excited. My name's Katie Williams, and I'm the marketing manager here at Glassdoor, and I'm going to be moderating today's event. Before we get started, I just want to talk about a few housekeeping items and let you know that all lines will be muted throughout the whole presentation, but definitely feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and we're going to get to those questions at the end of the session, so feel free to write them whenever you have one pop into your head. And also we're going to record this session, so we're going to send out all of the recordings afterwards and the webinar deck afterwards, so look out for an email from Glassdoor. And now I'd like to introduce our pretty awesome, amazing speakers. So first of all, we have Melissa Hooven. She's the Executive Director of Talent Acquisition at YP. She has a really awesome background in recruiting and talent acquisition, and I'll let her get into that a little bit later in the presentation. Then secondly, we have Steve Burton, who's VP of Marketing here at Glassdoor, and he's also going to chat with you and tell you all about his background. And so take it away, Steve. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, a little bit about me. My background is tech. So I began my career over 10 years ago as a Java developer, and I progressed through my career and got into pre-sales, product management, and then eventually marketing. But I spent the best part of 4 years being a Java developer, and before that, obviously, studying computer science at college helped me get into that industry. So what I want to share with you really is three things. I'm going to tell a story about Glassdoor. I'm going to tell a story about my typical week, what it involves, the products, the apps that I rely on. And then I'm going to talk about a story from my friend who was a recruiter in tech. And it really kind of hits home what I want to get across in terms of the challenges and how to overcome challenges in recruiting tech engineers. And then lastly, just some tips on how you can get started, some simple things you can do in order to attract engineering talent if you're not a tech company. So with that, get ready for the storytelling mode. The first story I want to tell really is about Glassdoor, how we began, the whole kind of decision that was made in order to get started and the value we provide today. Believe it or not, it all started around a fax machine. This was a fax machine that was in Expedia. So our founders are basically the same founders who founded Expedia. And what happened was one day the CEO was in his office and he accidentally printed all of the executive salaries and sent it to the wrong printer. So he's obviously looking to do a review and accidentally sent it to the main printer in the middle of the office floor where there was hundreds of employees around. And obviously his first question he thought was, what would happen if employees started to look at all of the executive compensation and packages, like, is that a bad thing? And when he actually spoke to his kind of peers, it turns out it wouldn't have been a bad thing at all. Like the transparency and being able to make people feel comfortable with what the executives are being paid relative to everyone else in the company, it opened up a new way of thinking about what happens when information becomes available. And around about that time, it was around about 2008, believe it or not, transparency was already happening in the marketplace. So it's been happening since 1995 with Amazon now. If you go on Amazon, pretty much everything on there is reviewed and rated. And you can compare prices. You can do pretty much any research you need to do. TripAdvisor does exactly the same for travel. So you, again, if you want to go on holiday or book a flight or kind of find the perfect location to go where, all the information is available for you to easily research and decide where you want to go on vacation. And more recently, Yelp has done the same for more local kind of services and products. And really, this is where the market and the consumer behavior is kind of turned to. It's no exception with Glassdoor. We're providing the same transparency for employers and employment. This is how we began in July 2008. We had just over 3,000 pieces of content. We had a few hundred companies that were on Glassdoor. We only covered really one or two industries. I think it was tech and retail. And we were in one country, which was America. If you fast forward the clock kind of to 2014, We're now around 7 million pieces of content, around a few 100,000 companies, and we're actually in 190 countries around the world. So it was a huge kind of growth based on the premise of delivering more transparency to the consumer about employment within the workforce. So that's just the kind of general kind of introductory to Glassdoor. Today, this is the transparency we provide job seekers. So you might know us for our company reviews and ratings. Believe it or not, we actually provide very detailed salary and compensation reports. We've just also added benefits as well now, so employers and job seekers can provide reviews on benefits within their employers. We also provide interview questions and reviews, so our candidates are actively posting reviews on what it was like to interview at an employer. And we also offer as well employer branding, where the employer can post photos, videos, and very rich content to help the job seeker understand what it's like to work at an employer. How it works, if you think of our Glassdoor as really kind of user-generated content around reviews, salaries, interviews, benefits, jobs, job seekers do their research by looking at different employers and looking at the different reviews. What we ask of every job seeker who does this is to give back to the community. So if they're analyzing salaries and reviews, what we want them to do is actually post what their salary is and what it's like to work with their current employer. And as a result of that, they actually self-select the right companies and the right jobs that are best for them, simply by researching the company reviews, the profiles, what it's like to work at the company, and they're pretty much educated before they apply for a job. And what that is it's really great for employers, because employers can post their jobs and showcase their brand to the Glassdoor community. And in return, they get high quality candidates because the candidates are completely educated before they even get to the interview process. And this is really how Glassdoor helps job seekers and helps employees. My second story is about what life is like for me every day. I mentioned my background is a Java developer, and I've been kind of a bit of a nerd and a geek ever since. And what I want to do is share with you what it's like for me every week and the decisions I make, and how it's relevant to really attracting tech engineers and technical talent. So let's start with a simple example. If I want to take my wife away for the weekend, I'll go online, I'll look at hotels.com, I'll check out the reviews, I'll typically sort it by the ratings, and I'll look at the right price, and I will book the hotel. Typically on my mobile phone now, I can do pretty much anything I can on my cell phone to what I used to do on my desktop computer. Another example is just dinner. Every other night, it's about finding a restaurant. And rather than trust my own judgment, I like to trust other people's judgment, because if my wife doesn't like the restaurant, I can blame other people and said, well, 100 people said this restaurant was good, so everything's good on that behalf. And really, it's pretty simple. Within a minute, I can download an app. I can tell the app where I am, what type of food I want to look at. I can look at the ratings and the reviews of the restaurant. I can see what people have actually said about the restaurant and the food, and then I can book a reservation. So OpenTable provides a very, very easy experience. Within a minute, I can research a restaurant, and I can book and actually apply at that restaurant and reserve a table. All on my cell phone, again, in a few minutes. If I want to travel to dinner with the wife, I just bring up Uber, and within a few minutes, a taxi driver arrives, and again, I can rate the Uber driver, and as the Uber driver is coming to me or is considering my business, I get to actually see what the rating is like for the driver who's going to take me to the restaurant. Again, another very, very simple example. Buying a car, believe it or not, it's really easy to buy a car online. Again, I did research on user forums and communities about what owners have thought about cars. I had the Auto Trader app, so I can search for cars that match my criteria in the location I'm in. I can look at Kelley Blue Book to get a fair purchase price of the car, so I can see what I should be paying. I can get all of this information before I even contact the seller. I can look at the Carfax report to look at the car history. Again, all of this I can do through my cell phone in typically 5 to 10 minutes. So it's super easy for me to get information on what I need in order to make a decision. And believe it or not, I actually called up the owner of the car and made him an offer based on all the research you see on these 4 simple screens that were done on my mobile phone. Even buying oil. If I want to buy oil for the right car, I go online, I find the community, what people have already used. I go on Amazon, I can look at the reviews and the prices of the oil, and I can order the oil online. Very, very simple. Again, this is the way technical people and developers are typically making decisions every single day because it's super convenient. They've got their cell phone. They can literally in a few clicks, a few taps, they can get to information very, very quickly. So the other 2 common things you saw in the last 4 slides that really make a difference to how developers and engineers are thinking. The first one is really user reviews and ratings. Developers trust other developers is the easiest way of kind of making this point. Technical people is a very tight-knit community. They regularly meet in developer events, communities, online forums. They're very kind of networking heavy in how they come to solutions on a day-to-day basis. And they really do trust their peers' opinions. If you go to a developer conference, and you actually listen to the sessions and you go to the drinks afterwards, I mean, that's pretty much where developers get their information, their intel. It's where they improve their career and learn. The second thing is mobile. This might not seem an obvious thing, but everything I've just showed you, you can access information, like I said, in at least 30 seconds in 1 or 2 swipes on a mobile phone. And developers love mobile phones. Because they can download the latest applications. They can build applications for mobile devices, so whether it's Android or Apple or iPhone. And again, everything that an engineer is likely to do about researching jobs or researching you as a company will be done on a mobile device. And one scary statistic is that typically about 45% to 50% of your traffic to your career pages online, so if your corporate website and your career page is going to be through mobile devices. You might not be aware of this, but that number is growing, and it's more likely to be about 75% in the next 2 to 3 years. So if your career page or your career website is not mobile optimized, you're effectively kind of almost blocking the engineering talent from understanding who you are, and the opportunities that your employer provides for engineering people. And those are really kind of the key lessons. If you want to really attract tech talent, user reviews and ratings are super important, but also them being able to understand who you are and what positions and opportunities you have through a mobile device. The reality is where we work is a lot more important than hotels, restaurants, and cars. Again, engineers that typically want to know what it's like to work at the company, what salary can they command, who do they know that can refer them into the position, and more importantly, how do I prepare for the interview? A lot of the technical interviews that employees have are fairly kind of difficult because they obviously want to kind of qualify the best technical talent. So engineers are always looking for these questions about what it's like to work and how much they should be paid relative to their peers. This is what Glassdoor typically does, is answers a lot of these questions about what it's like to work there, because engineers, data science people are actively posting what it's like to work and what their salaries are. So the transparency is there for a lot of engineers. As an employer, it's really your job to provide this transparency and engage your employees so that they can almost create and define your employer brand online so you can influence more engineers and more technical talent. As I said, technical people respect the opinion of their peers in the industry. So if you've got a kick-ass engineering team that's working on cool projects, engaging those employees to help you attract more engineering talent is really what your strategy should be. Even if you're not a tech company, chances are your business has applications and you have software engineering teams that are responsible for kind of taking business requirements and converting them to software applications. you need to leverage those teams as a means to network and influence more developer and technical communities. As I mentioned, mobile usage is going to overtake desktop usage. So we've traditionally, as an employer, thought about our career pages and our website as a means to attract and influence talent. Now that game is already switching to mobile devices. You've got to make sure the information in your brand is projected as well on a mobile device as on a desktop device. And as I said, if it isn't, you get a really bad user experience for the engineers who are trying to research who you are as an employer, what jobs you have, and why it's so special to work at your company. Again, we've got a mobile device here, a mobile app for Glassdoor that allows engineers to do that. But you should be thinking about all of the current online communities and information you have in order to optimize those things. For Glassdoor, it's actually 42% of our traffic is coming from mobile devices. Story number 3, this is really interesting and something I can relate to as an engineer, and it's something that I think hampers the ability to recruit technical talent. It goes along the lines of this. There's a startup just down the road. No one really knew who the startup was, not a lot of brand awareness. It had a lot of funding. It had great technology at the heart of the company. And they were pretty much told by the executives, go and hire people from Google and Apple, which I'm sure a few of you may have already had those orders. Let's attract the best kind of engineering talent we have in the marketplace. So what happened? They were lucky enough to hire an architect from Google, and they made him chief architect of the software development division. And what started happening is he started hiring through his network, and things were going great. They had a fairly robust kind of team, and then they started to get into growth mode, and they needed to hire more engineers and more technical talent. And what started to happen was they started to get feedback from the group saying that candidates weren't good enough, they were poor technically, they weren't a culture fit, they didn't like their attitude. And all of this feedback started getting back to the recruiter. And the recruiter was like, this is kind of weird because for the first time ever, we've got a really healthy pipeline. We're interviewing a lot of candidates for engineers, and we're getting feedback that they're not good enough. So something's not right. Then all of a sudden, a female engineer from Apple interviewed at the company, and the feedback was she's awesome, brilliant technically, definitely a hire, and a total rock star. And everyone gave a thumbs up. And the recruiter was like, "Hey, this is awesome. We've got another hire from Apple." So they went about making her an offer, and an offer was made to the female engineer. And unfortunately, this is what the engineer said. She wasn't interested. She hated the interview process, and she felt like everyone wanted her to fail. And this is something that I've seen a lot of. I was interviewing a lot of developers, and there's a sense that engineers don't like the feeling of other engineers coming in and being smarter than them, or almost threatening their prestigious kind of reputation and brand within the team. So they typically try to find, like, nitpick and find, like, things that they don't like about the candidate, just so the candidate wouldn't make it through the hiring process. And sure enough, they went back to the chief architect and said, why is it that you've declined like 100 people, and suddenly one person comes along and says they didn't like the interview process? The candidate actually declined the offer. The CEO of the company called up the candidate, went out for dinner with the candidate and urged her to come back and then interview the people who interviewed her, and said, right, you're going to come back, we want you to work at our company, but now you have to interview the people who interviewed you, just to make up for the poor experience she had. And the key lesson here is, like, hiring good engineers, regardless of whether you're in tech or not in tech, it's all about really, it's finding a group of engineers that can work together. You've got to have rock stars, but more is achieved through a team than through individuals. And the interview process needs to be polished. There's a lot of, a typical candidate's going to go through multiple interviews before they consider and accepting an offer. And again, here's the interview experience on Glassdoor between VMware and Google, a quick comparison. You can see VMware and Google have the same difficulty rating, but the experience a job candidate has is significantly different. And you can see VMware has almost an 80% positive experience for candidates who interview with them, regardless of whether they accept or decline an offer. Again, I went through this process when I interviewed for a developer, not hearing from the recruiter, just feeling like I wasn't a priority, or that the timing of the interview was cancelled, and it just, the small things really do matter when you're recruiting engineers. We know of an employer that actually had an engineer reject a job offer because they cheaped out on the rental car when they flew the engineer from his home to their office for an interview. They basically wrote on Glassdoor that they wined and dined on the rental car, and it wasn't the spec that he asked for, and based off that, he made his judgment that he didn't want to work at that employer. So the small things really do matter. I think engineers are more divas than anything. I think there's some egos, and they're very analytical, and sometimes the small things can make a big difference. Again, here's the details of the interview. This is what actively goes on, where you have engineers posting what it's like to actually interview at an employer. And again, this is how engineers do their research and preparation for interviewing with you as an employer. So, how do you influence engineers? What are the key things you should be thinking of in order to attract technical talent when you're not specifically a tech company? This is really what the differentiators are like yesterday, where everything was about money, stock options, the latest technologies, free lunch, free beer, swag, and max. Believe it or not, today is more about whether you're relevant as an employer and the problems you're trying to solve as a company, what your vision and mission and what you really stand for is about. What makes you unique as a company? Why are you a compelling company to work for? What is your culture like? Is the culture reflected by the people that work at your company? Also about thought leadership as well. What new and exciting things are you doing as an employer, specifically in technology? That could be mobile, it could be social, it could be cloud. You might have a data science team. But what is it about you as a tech organization inside your employer and your company that is making you unique? And I remember when I was a developer, it was all about technology. It was all about doing cool, interesting things that were really making a difference and that I could relate to. The first thing you can do is make your actual employees bloggers. So reach out to your engineering teams and your developers and give them a voice. A lot of companies have created blogs to enable their engineers to actually document and share their story about the cool things they're working on, the cool projects. So you can see here Netflix and Walmart Labs. They do a really good job of actually evangelizing and influencing engineers through blogs and thought leadership. So it could well be your engineering team is working on a cool project. Put that project out there. Get your engineers to document it and share what cool stuff they're doing so that when other engineers check out the blog, they can see the projects they're going to be involved in. Number 2 is make them feel like evangelists. Give them a voice, allow them to attend events and speak at events, allow them to do webinars. Believe it or not, events and webinars are a great place to attract talent and network. Make your engineers feel like they're the voice of the company in terms of they're the technical recruiters. They're the ones who really want to project what it's like to work at your company. Let them attend events, let them go to meetups, let them really tell the story about what it's like to work at your company. Employee recruiting events. This worked well for a lot of companies. Basically, simply just going to a city and saying, we're looking to attract engineers, we're going to throw a free bar in the city. Get your engineers to attend and network with engineers who are turning up who just want some free food, some pizza or some beer, and get the conversations going. A lot of good companies actually hit the meetup events in the developer communities, and they might offer free pizza or free beer. That is really where you're going to attract the best technical talent and have real face-to-face conversations about engineers and developers who are looking to perhaps make a move. You can have a big impact just by being relevant and making them feel special and giving them really what they're interested in. So that's another great tip. Number 4 is managing your online brand. As I said, a lot of engineers do research and actively go online to find out what it's like to work there. The smartest thing you can do is get your engineering teams and your developers engaged in the conversation. Ask them to post reviews on communities like Glassdoor. Ask them to explain what it's like to work there, to document the cool projects they're working on, what the culture's like, so that when other engineers come along and research you, you can pretty much be guaranteed that they're gonna hear from the engineers that already work there, and that's going to influence them to perhaps take an interview or to make the next step. Believe it or not, just by simply typing in working at VMware or working at your company name, you're going to get Glassdoor coming up as the first 2 or 3 results, primarily because that's what a lot of users are contributing towards. All of the reviews and the content that comes into Glassdoor is indexed by Google and other search engines. And again, this is, as an engineer that's searching for salaries or benefits or interviews, chances are they're going to end up on Glassdoor. Employee engagement. Get your execs teams to respond to reviews. So whether those reviews are on Glassdoor or other communities, technical people love to see transparency and authenticity. The developers really do take kind of a no BS attitude to a lot of things and decisions they make. Actually you can see here, the CEO of Zillow actually started to respond to Glassdoor reviews. And as a result, he actually got back to us and actually pointed out that 4 candidates in a month said that seeing him respond to Glassdoor reviews made them feel like they were a special employer to work for relative to their competitors. And that was a huge kind of win just by simply acknowledging reviews and responding to reviews. And that's really good. If I'm an engineer and I can see that the CTO, the chief architect, is responding to reviews by engineers, that shows to me that the leadership is engaged and they actually care about what the employees are saying. So key takeaways, you can really buy a car using a cell phone, but believe it or not, developers and technical people, everything's about mobile and apps these days, about how they access information, how they find out about job opportunities, and how they research employers. As an employer, you should embrace reviews, ratings, and transparency. You can actually, as I said, if you get your engineering team or your developers to engage and leave reviews and tell people what it's like to work at your company, chances are that's going to influence other engineers that might be looking or researching your company to work for when there's an opportunity. Mobile, you need to really have a strategy for this. If you're looking to recruit the top talent, an engineer isn't going to look for jobs on his work desktop machine because they're just not, because of corporate guidelines and just the kind of it's bad form to research jobs. However, they are going to do it on their cell phones. That's something you can be sure, whether it's at lunch or whether it's in a bar. And therefore, the experience really does matter. So you need to think about whether your career opportunities and your brand is mobile ready. As I said, employee engagement is key. Make your employees the evangelists in order to get to the technical talent you need to influence. You've got to really leverage that. And as I said, turn them into evangelists. So with that, key takeaways, I'm going to hand over to Maria at YP, and she can take it for then and tell you how to attract talent from her perspective at YP.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll go through the slides here. I'll say next slide because I think it shows my little intro. All right, so a little bit about myself. My name is Melissa Hooven. I am the Executive Director of Talent Acquisition here at YP, specifically for our tech and digital arm. I'm known for growing companies. I started as a tech recruiter, so I know the beast inside and out. My first passion is recruiting, and then my second is horseback riding. And a really fun fact about me is that I'm a millennial. So I'll give you guys, it's 1981 to 1996, so you guys can do your math on that one. We'll go to the next slide. There is this keen phrase called the war of talent, and it's a term that has become a default what I call an excuse for recruitment challenges. This phrase started in 1997 when a McKinsey study exposed the war for talent as a strategic business challenge. And it was a critical driver of corporate performance. But this was released in the pre-dot-com days, and it's commonly referred to today. So there are thousands of jobs. There's always going to be many competitors, and there's always going to be a company that looks like a better place to work than yours. And that doesn't go away. Those are just obstacles. So I'm just going to scratch the word obstacles, and I'm going to turn that word into opportunities. So those opportunities, not obstacles, will always exist. Today we're going to discuss ways to learn how to get out of the old mindset and build action plans that equals results in hiring and being part of a talent acquisition team that tackles these opportunities. We'll go to the next slide. So YP, yes, the phone book. I do know that. But let me dig in a little bit about YP just as a business. We generate $1 billion in digital revenue, another $1 billion in print. YP mobile advertising generates over $380 million in 2013, and it's ranked number 3 in U.S. mobile internet ad revenue, which is ahead of Twitter and Pandora. I joined YP because it creates solutions for small businesses, and our country is founded on small businesses. You know, from my local flower shop to my dentist to my dry cleaners. And after I interviewed here at YP, I spent the next 3 days going through my life and realizing that YP really can change companies by getting them online and getting more customers in front of them. And this is the story that I needed to create for candidates because it was my experience and I knew I could relate to them. So we'll go to the next slide. Talent starts at YP. And this is something that we created internally, like this is the start line. So it's about creating opportunities on our social media outreach and going to local communities to showcase YP as the company of choice. Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge, and that for knowledge is limited to all we know now and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all that there will ever be to know and understand. So let me take that quote and turn it into talent acquisition for you. Imagination is your social campaigns, which is highly important to capture your talent who only has knowledge of where they're at today. And where they're at today is their current company. And that's limited. So if you can build imagination where people are going online, looking at your reviews, looking at your Glassdoor page, looking at LinkedIn, looking at people who they know they're connected to at your company, it becomes your opportunity. And this is a possibility for them to have a better job. Let's go to the next slide. So YP. Yes, you think the phone book, but we need recognition as a digital company. So I have to make this company sexy and appealing to tech talent. So I looked at my stats as a business, and YP reaches over 70 million consumers across the mobile and web properties. YP's mobile app has been downloaded 10 million times, and we have nearly 3 million businesses who have been bookmarked on our MyBook site to date. So I knew that we were a real business, and it's a full circle offering from B2B to B2C. So you ask, why is YP a tech company? We'll go to the next slide. YP's, that's fancy. We got a fancy slide there. LA engineering population total is about 40,000 engineers, and YP employs 450 in our tech organization. So I knew at that point we held 1% of LA's population for tech. But I know this is growing as we move into the digital space. So I needed to position this company as a marriage between sales and tech, which is unheard of because tech doesn't want to be married to sales and sales doesn't want to be married to tech. But I have an edge. We're one of the largest open source companies in Los Angeles. We have a large data platform, and our engineers are constantly sought after by Google, Apple, you name it, Yahoo. Everyone's could be stolen from here. But I have a unique and dynamic tech culture, and I know we have great offers and great benefits and packages. I just needed to showcase it. So at the same time, I knew YP was going through a rebranding. So we were taking Yellow Pages and turning it into YP. So I rode the coattails, and I'm kind of going on to the rebrand. So we'll go to the next slide. Oh, I think we're clicking through. There we go. All right. So I tied it to the rebrand. I launched all of our social sites with all the pictures and images that we were doing on billboards and advertisements that were going around all of the metropolitan cities. And I made it personal to the candidates so that they got to relate to the pictures. They got to see people in the culture on Glassdoor, that, you know, the culture was relating to something that they wanted to join. But, you know, everyone always says this word social is grand and it's very hard to measure. So let's look at the stats. Let's go to the next slide. 25% of software engineers plan to look for a new job in the next quarter. Let's go to the next slide again, and it's 52% of software engineers are likely to accept less money to work at a company with a great culture. 97% of software engineers read online reviews about a company before accepting a job offer. And 48% of female software engineers are likely to apply to a company that a friend recommended. So taking those stats in mind, we'll go to the next slide. I had to address my opportunities. Remember, we're scratching the word obstacles here. So we had to become specialized in recruitment. We had to know that we're Java, data science, Node.js, Ruby, we have big infrastructure. The other obstacle, now opportunity, is that LA is becoming the next Silicon Valley. So we have competing offers. Our location is in Glendale. I had to say, is the YP brand sexy enough, and what can I do from a social media perspective on my Glassdoor and LinkedIn to make it appealing? And then, is there a large enough employee value proposition? Let's go to the next slide. One of the things that I decided to do, you can click through it. Next slide. There we go. Oh, we'll go to this one. Influence over job decisions. 97% of software engineers read online reviews about a company before accepting an offer. So let me take that into the next slide, and I'll tell you what we did over here at YP. I created a YP Tech Glassdoor profile because I needed to showcase that we had a presence here in Los Angeles and that we were a tech-focused division. We are a large division for YP, except, you know, YP is more known to be a sales organization. We had a large arm here in Glendale, and we had to showcase that this was, you know, cutting edge with culture and cutting edge with technology, and that the jobs were relevant to people who were coming on the site to look at. Let's go down to the next slide. So just the basics of a Glassdoor profile. We kind of tied into our jobs, and also it shows our salaries, the user reviews, and the ratings. It's something that we're working on and monitoring closely because we know it's important. Let's move to the next one. All right, so this is the YP Tech Glassdoor profile. We're putting pictures on that are very relevant to engineers. We have our feeds, which is really important to incorporate into your Facebook and your Twitter. It's also important to put videos. The more engaging, the better. And so that was one of the big strategies that we're doing here at YP Tech Glendale. And then let's go to the next slide. Let me just tell you a couple other strategies that we've done. One is an employee referral program. If you guys do not have one, this is highly recommended for me. Get engaged. Most software engineers know other software engineers, and birds like a feather flock together. So talent knows talent. Number two, networking events. This is important. I think it's important that you create an ecosystem of brand ambassadors in your company, which are your employees, and you invite them to networking events, and talent acquisition goes to networking events. Or you partner with some of the departments and go with them or host them together, which leads into number three, which is our meetups. We host a meetup every month at YP, and it's around a lot of our technology practices, and we partner with the divisions that are in line with that technology, and we host an event, buy food and drinks, and hang out in the local ecosystem. The fourth thing that we do is we sponsor hackathons. We do a big one every year, and this last month we did one with our internship program, which was really neat. And then we're also kicking off a program called YP Labs. So the fifth one is our internship program. This is key for getting talent. You want to partner with local communities, not community college, just local colleges. You want to get feeder programs. You want to be at the colleges explaining your company and talking to them about your tech proposition, and create programs that students could come in as an internship and then receive full-time jobs. Number 6, evaluate your candidate experience. Do something different than everyone else. I understand whiteboarding is a big element of the interview process for technology, but do something different. Make a very unique experience for a candidate. If they're interviewing with you, good chance is that they're interviewing with multiple companies, and you need to differentiate yourself against others. And number 7, run analytics on your outside vendors. I know that hiring tech talent's tough, and I would say 90% of companies doing so are working with outside vendors to help supplement the talent pool. But run analytics on them. You should be partnering with people who are extensions of your talent acquisition brand and also are giving you value. Let's go to the next slide.
Hey, Melissa, I think we had a slide skip back at the strategy, so let's go back to that because I think that was really important.
We skipped that one. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So my strategies internally as I took over the YP Tech team was we hired an internal recruiting team that was very focused and specialized on tech. General recruiters are not tech recruiters. So you really, if you're going to be growing in your tech division, you need to hire specifically tech recruiters. I can't strongly suggest that enough. Second is create a preferred vendors list based on results. You can start working with outside firms, and you want to continue working with firms that are giving you results, that are giving you good candidates that stay a long time and that are adding value to the culture. If you have 25 vendors on a list and maybe 3 of them made placements, you need to reevaluate your list. You should not be having open contracts with 25 outside vendors. Third, we have to build the brand. So like I mentioned before, we're coattailing onto our marketing team, and we're going to be, doing stuff that coincide with what the brand's doing. The fourth thing is workforce planning. Please learn this term. It's really about sitting down with the executives and planning your recruitment strategy. 99% of the time you get an open rec and the department's already has a fire hose open and a fire is going, and they need that person desperately. It's really about coming ahead of the game and trying to understand workforce planning and to plan time to fills and give yourself recruitment, the team, to be successful. So accurate times to fill, and try to pre-plan as much as possible so you're not working at a negative day one. And then agree to reasonable expectations to hire. That's something where you really have to sit down with your executives and start talking about the challenges in the marketplace and the things that you've been hearing from candidates, but also setting a reasonable expectation to hire when you agree to hire technical talent. Some roles that are difficult to fill are going to be a 90-day recruitment cycle, and you just have to have those conversations up front. I think the last one is going to be for questions now. I think we're moving right into that. I believe so. There we go. I'll let you take it over.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Okay, so please feel free to type your questions in the questions chat box. It looks like we have a few. The first one is for probably both of you, but how did YP get a page on Glassdoor, and how did you add photos, videos, etc.?
Great. So we worked with one of the account reps, Christy, up in San Francisco, and talked to her about kind of what was my goals and expectations of coming on Glassdoor, and what was some of the services that they provide, and then kind of worked in a partnership to get that launched, within a budget, and also with some of the expectations that we needed to do. And so they walked us through them. They also helped us through implementing the page with pictures and videos.
Great. And also, if you haven't unlocked your free employer account, we offer those as well, just FYI. Okay, so another couple questions about sharing the slides. Everyone really liked your list slides, Melissa. So those slides will be provided after. Just look out for an email from Glassdoor, and we'll also send you the recording. Still have time for a few more questions. If you have any more, we'll wait for a couple more minutes. Okay, another question, Melissa. Does YP respond to reviews on their Glassdoor profile?
Right. That's something that we're discussing right now. And yes, we do on the YP Tech site. We're starting to do responses, and then also we're getting to our senior leadership team to review the responses, even if they come in negative, so that we can respond.
Great.
I think it's important for transparency.
Great. Okay, another couple questions. What should you look for when hiring a tech recruiter?
Oh, that's a great question, because I'm in the process of hiring one right now. You need someone with a data mind, and that's very analytical when it comes to numbers and volume. You want someone who understands that they may have to talk to 200 people in order to get the 5 candidates, that it's not a reactive recruitment experience. It's more of a proactive recruitment experience. So you want someone who's resourceful, someone who is going to kind of tear down all the red tape in order to get to candidates, but also someone who understands it's a numbers game and is just very, very persistent. That makes a good tech recruiter.
Great. Okay, another question here. What job post sites have you found to be the most successful for hiring engineers?
Glassdoor, actually, when I ran the analytics previously at a couple previous companies, Glassdoor was one of the sites that drove the most tech traffic for us. We've had some luck with LinkedIn, obviously, but I know everyone's going to love Dice, but I have a love-hate relationship with them. My biggest play for tech talent is on Glassdoor.
Great. Okay, Burton, this might be for you. What can a company do if employees or candidates post incorrect or negative information on Glassdoor? Do you have an answer for that?
Yes. So all reviews go through two cycles of moderation. One, we have software analytics that looks for kind of people trying to game the system. Believe it or not, we actually have a team of 40 people who manually moderate all reviews and content once it goes through that first round of reviews. If there's a review that's on the profile, there's many options available. You can flag the review as a follow-up. So if you think it breaches the guidelines of Glassdoor, that gets flagged immediately. And we have someone in the community team who will actively look at that. Listen to your concerns and really get to the point of whether it does breach the guideline. The best really thing you can do though is to respond. I mean, just like I go to a restaurant or a hotel or I look at and analyze things online, I actually look for the negative things because I see the positive things, but I want to understand the exceptions. And really, like the hotels that I've stayed at, there has been kind of bad reviews, and believe it or not, the managers responded in a really professional manner. And I think job seekers know that when they look at all of the reviews. I don't think negative reviews are kind of a bad thing. Obviously, they're not as great as a positive review, but it really gives the job seeker the real transparent view of what it's like to work for. I don't think any engineer thinks any company's perfect, but if they go into the position knowing the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think that they're more informed and they know what to expect.
Great. Okay, another question for you, Melissa. Mm-hmm. Do you use OpenStack resume search?
I have seen it before. I have not used it here.
Okay. So. Great. Okay, well, thank you. It looks like that's all the questions we have, but feel free to email me, katie.williams@glassdoor.com, if you have any other questions, and I'll just type this in the chat box. And thank you so much, Melissa and Steve. Love the presentation. We'll be sending out the recording and the slides afterwards. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.